Well, here we have this wonderful gospel, which almost seems impossible, for us to be able to, love your enemies, do never, no, return no one evil for evil, be generous and kind and forgiving when they hurt you. And it really is something that doesn't seem to make much sense but remember what Jesus is contrasting with, comparing it with. It's the law of Talon. The law of Talon was meant to be, a law that kind of helped people to keep things in balance. Because if someone slapped you on the cheek, the other person could kill them. Especially with the unequal power balance between the high and the low, the rich and the poor. There wasn't really a whole lot of justice that was available, at the times. And so they said, well, look, you had this be commensurate. If somebody hits you, and knocks out a tooth, knock their tooth out. If somebody punches in the eye, punch them in the eye, but don't go overboard. And what Jesus, of course, the problem with that, if you continue to say the law of Talon, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then pretty much what happens is all the world is full of toothless blind people. And so Jesus says, this isn't how it is in the kingdom of heaven. This is not how it is in the kingdom of heaven. And this is not how it's meant to be. When we say, our Father prayer, may it be, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so these are kingdom of God values, where there is no more hatred on all his holy mountain, where the lion lies down with the lamb, and the child plays in the adder's den. It is a place free of violence and hatred. And so the challenge is, how do you begin to make that happen in a world that is so violent, so destructive? And we're especially seeing that today, more so than ever. And we don't have to look to Ukraine to see that. We can also look, to our city streets and to our schools and to our Walmarts and just where people are so upset with each other that they're just gunning each other down. It is hard to even watch the news anymore now. True, isn't it? So how do we begin to find ourselves calling our basic human nature, which is full of anger and concern for ourselves, how do we then turn that around? And it is to begin to, as you have in those readings today, that you're the temple. Each person is a temple of God. Each person is a temple of God. And we all belong to God. We aren't separate into different groups, It's all of this belongs to God, and all of you are in God. And we have to remember, where do we come from? Who do we belong to? And who will be judging us at some point on our actions in this life as we stand before the God of all, before his throne in heaven. So it's a good question to ponder as we get close to Lent. And I'd like to, what it is it has to do with traveling aspirationally, with traveling hopefully, with striving to make a small change in the here and now that eventually accumulates to a larger change that is more reflective of the way God believes we should love one another. Burt Bacharach died just a little while ago. Great loss, really. I just love Burt Bacharach. His music was incredible. The way he was able to shift time signatures and bring something fresh. And so I've got 3 couples here for you to contemplate. One is Burt Bacharach and Diane Warwick. Burt Bacharach and Diane Warwick. I assure you, nobody in the Catholic Church is talking about this today. Dionne Warwick was such a wonderful voice to accompany Burt Bacharach and Hal David's musicianship. But the one little song I remember is, "You'll never get to heaven if you break my heart." Seems like a little thing. You'll never get to heaven if you break my heart, right? And we say, well, so what? And say, well, little things mean a lot. You can't just break somebody's heart and then just presume you're going to get to heaven. That's just a slightly different version of an older song, which was, just be true just be true when you say I love you. It's a sin to tell a lie. I can't remember. I'm off key on this thing. You know, many a heart has been broken just because these words were spoken. I love you. Yes, I do. I love you. So, you know, be sure that it's true when you say I love you. It's a sin to tell a lie. How many old people remember that one? 2 people. Okay, good. All right. I can't remember who sang it, but it's the same kind of thing as, you'll never get to heaven if you break my heart. It's a sin to tell a lie. Out of little things come big things. And that's why Jesus says, don't let the big things remain as big things. Somebody punches in the eye, don't punch him back. Takes your tooth, don't, you know. It's hitting you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. Now here's the second couple. Ready? But you can't guess. Okay. Chris Rock and Will Smith. Okay, Chris Rock and Will Smith. Now, you all remember the slap heard around the world, right? You know? And the whole idea is, it says, why did that have to happen there? You know, why would it? I mean, he could have, you know, waited and gone up later or said something like, he forgot completely what he was there for. You know, this is the award ceremony, and he's supposed to get a wonderful award. Instead of being happy about that, he's concentrating on one thing that somebody said. And maybe they shouldn't have said it or whatever, but it got totally out of hand. And imagine what would have happened if Will Smith hadn't turned the other cheek. You would have then seen a tremendous fight occurring on stage. And so little things can get out of hand. We have to remember who we are, why we're here, you know, who we represent, and what the other person is as well. We again go back to, we're both temples of God. Now, here's the third couple. Okay, first one was Burt Bacharach and Dionne Warwick. Second one was Chris Rock and Will Smith. You want to venture who the next couple will be? Okay, Jesus and Peter. Jesus and Peter. Where Peter says to Jesus, Lord, trying to incur favor, how often must I forgive someone, you know, who sins against me? 7 times? And of course, what Peter did is he took you should do 3. You know, if you do 3 and then they go beyond that, then you don't have to forgive them anymore. So he takes 3, he doubles it, and he adds 1 more to it, and then says, how about if I do it 7 times? And Jesus says, no, Simon, not 7 times. And Peter probably would have really said, yeah, I thought that was excessive. And what Jesus then says is, no, I say to you, and this is the important part of all of this, you've heard it said, but I say to you, Jesus is giving a new commandment. And this is part of the completion of yesterday's gospel, where we're talking, last weekend's gospel, where we're talking about, has Jesus come to abolish the law and the prophets? Says, no, he's not come to abolish it, he's come to fulfill it. And so he says, what is the basis of the law? And the basis of the law is love. Love God, love your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the rest is commentary. And so here's really the fulfillment of the law, the foundation of the law, you know, is to return no one evil for evil. Turn the other cheek. St. Paul could say, don't let the sun go down on your anger. So as we approach Lent, one of the things we might remember, as was in the gospel last week, is if we come to church to lay our gift at the altar and there remember that anyone has anything against us, not do we have anything against anybody else. Does anyone have anything against us? Have we harmed or hurt anybody in any way? Leave the gift, go first to be reconciled, and then come and offer the gift. And of course, the thing is, the gift is not the bread or wine. The gift is not, you know, oxen or doves. It's not cattle. It's not sheaves of wheat or vases of oil, jugs of oil. The gift that we offer to God is ourself, our heart, our mind, our soul. And also, what kind of world are we building out of that? What kind of world are we building? We are, not unfortunately, but justly going to be held accountable for what we do in this world. And if we simply concentrate on our own self, then we're going to see no further than the injuries that people do to us. But if we think about what kind of world do we wish to build, then we can move aspirationally and hopefully. And while it may seem that one little step at a time is not going to make such a big difference, just remember, that the mountains were worn down by raindrops. And that something that is done repeatedly, repetitively, over and over and over again, surely has its effect. And when we get to the point where we see more people forgiving each other and loving each other, we'll eventually say, you know what, that makes much more sense than the way we're living now. And we then can begin to have the idea that we will begin to see new heavens and a new earth and a peaceable kingdom. It starts with us.